All right. Welcome, everyone. This is Rough Cuts. It's August 17th, 2025, and I'm here with my co-host, Nate, in Cardboard Veritas on Instagram. What's going on, Nate? How you doing?
Hey, good, Jonathan. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, We've Nate and I have been excited about this one for a few weeks now. Look, I guess it's been about 2.5 weeks, or how long has it been? Two weeks since the end of the National to do a recap. And as well as our co-host, Matthew, 1956 Tops guy. He was at the National with us as well. And Matthew is unavailable to join. He's here in spirit, and I'm wearing a Cubs hat for him. He often wears one, but he is in the middle of a relocation and as well as a big job change. So we're excited for Matthew, but he's not with us here tonight. And it looks like Nate just dropped off, so we'll get him back here in a minute or so. And let's see, there he is.
Sorry about that. My bad.
No worries. I was just explaining that Matt's relocating, and Matthew's not with us tonight, but we look forward to having him back on a future episode. And we're getting a few folks jumping in here to the chat. Double D Vintage Baseball Cards, thanks for joining. Good to see you.
All right.
So what I'm going to do here is quickly go through the agenda of our national recap, and then we're going to actually start with a very special guest. So we're going to start with highlights of things of the aspects of the national that we've come to know over the years that were highlights, as well as some things that were new for us this year. Hit a couple lowlights, talk through things we might do differently in the future at nationals, some key takeaways and impressions. We'll look ahead at next shows we're going to attend. And most importantly, at the end, show a lot of pickups. And hopefully along the way, we'll get some good questions and detours from the chat like we usually do. Pat, good to see you. Hoping you would join. So Nate, anything you'd add to the agenda before we jump into our special guest?
No, I think that sounds great, Jonathan. As you said, we've been looking forward to this one. As usual, it takes us a little while to get our act together and actually pull a show off. But excited to be doing it. Obviously, missing Matthew tonight, but looking forward to having him rejoin us here soon. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
All right. So our special guest today is Luke. Luke, let's move the camera over. There he is in the room with Nate.
How's it going?
Good to see you, Luke. I'm glad you joined us. Tell us before we jump in, what is your Instagram handle?
Cards for Life 32, CARDZ, and then like the number 4, Life 32. It's not the most original handle for sure.
Hey, but it's an awesome account, and our buddy Chris is saying is 55 Tops filling in for 56. I don't think, Luke, we would call you 55 Tops. I might call you T206.
That's right.
61 clear.
All right, so we're gonna do kind of a lightning round with Luke, who was at the National as well, and then we'll jump into the rest of that agenda I went through. So Luke, for starters, why don't you just tell us how old are you and how long have you been a collector?
I just turned 17 in July, and I've been in the hobby, like really in the hobby, I'd say since COVID. But like I've always kind of collected, like I was talking with Luke Bleecker Street about this at the National, like how long I've been opening cards for. And my first cards that I had, like that I found in my collection, were from 2012. So that would have made me 4. Wow. So so I've kind of been born into it and like opening packs my whole life. And until COVID, like I'd go to a couple shops here and there, but COVID when it really started for me.
Yeah, which was a time that a lot of our audience, like myself and your dad, revitalized our own collecting. I'll say this for our listeners about Luke. So I've known him for several years, met him at the National, and this was the year where I declared he is officially better at this than I am. No question. And we'll probably get into that a little bit as we go through these questions. But at age 17, you are wise in the hobby and very experienced. An incredible eye. So tell us, what do you like to collect, and kind of why is that what you've honed in on?
I do, like you guys, mostly collect vintage. I obviously started modern, like opening cards and stuff, but I feel like the why is important to like I collect them because I just feel like they're undervalued comparatively, and I like the history of, like, in general, history of sports. But overall, I'd say like, I love the hobby, but I feel like I think modern is it's just too bad of an investment, and like I like this hobby I love. Like, I would just rather be in it making a bunch of money rather than losing a bunch of money. I feel like is kind of how it comes down to. So
At least one of our listeners, Chris, agrees that you're wiser than I am. You mentioned you like history, and I wonder if, having heard your dad's history of how all the modern cards when we were young had a lot of value and lost it, I wonder if that kind of guided your wisdom towards some of the vintage stuff that just holds value so well.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it did to some degree, and like I've definitely had my cards that I've bought in modern that have gone down for sure. Like, I bought a Zion Williamson Prism rookie base, surprisingly high for $550, and now it's maybe 30 around there or so.
Wow.
So, I've had some stings, some lessons that definitely have made me change my perspective on collecting, as well as I went in pretty big on a prospect named James Wiseman, who was the second pick in 2021.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be good. I saw him play a couple times at Memphis, and I was like, wow, this guy's really good. It did not
we've all done it.
Work too well.
Yeah.
We've all done it. I made some Devin Booker mistakes, even though the guy's a heck of a player. The values don't always do what you think. Oh, so tell us this: how many nationals have you been at? Which number was this for you? And where would you rank it among the ones you went to?
This was number 5 for me, and it was a great show. I mean, they're always like amazing, but it's hard to say. But maybe one could be the best one that I've been to. I mean, the first national obviously is like a whole new experience. That's amazing, but could be the best one of them.
I can't argue. It was number 4 for me, and I'd put it way up there. Tell me, what were some of the specific highlights of this year in Chicago that made it potentially the top pick?
There's so many highlights to choose from. I feel like the national is like kind of like a walking highlight for me almost. It's just like there's so many highlights every day. Like, it's like collecting like a bunch of great cards and buying and selling a bunch of great cards and adding them to my collection, making a bunch of money throughout the day, and then going and having like a fun, interesting dinner like at night is like. So I mean, I'd say probably like the dinners that we had with like fellow collectors like yourself, and like the trade nights too. The trade nights are really fun, like kind of getting to see like cards that you wouldn't otherwise see, I feel like. And also that's a way for me to like sell the cards that I bought at the show. So
right. But one of our listeners also says maybe Wiseman was at the national. Maybe that adds to the top.
I still have a lot of his cards for sure. Definitely.
Never give up.
Never give up. Riding the wave. Riding the wave.
The debate we had at our first dinner over deep dish pizza about LeBron and Jordan and Steph Curry. It was such a good debate. And Luke, you were holding your own against like 7 middle-aged men. It was like super memorable for me.
I am very passionate about the LeBron Jordan debate, much less the LeBron Curry debate.
Yeah.
One of the I know one of the huge highlights for all of us was from that night when we showed up tired and weary from a day at the national, and they told us, I think it was probably 8:30, we were famished. They told us it'd be like a 2-hour wait for a table. There were basically no other options. We were all completely bummed. And then about 3 minutes later, they came over and said they had a table ready. That was one of the best moments of the national, probably, right? Like,
that's so true. So true.
Yeah.
All right. While we've got you, Luke, I know you do a lot of buying and selling. What are a couple favorites you brought home from the show? And I'd love to hear if you think you'll be back in Chicago next year as well.
So, well, one, I'll obviously be back. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I feel like one thing to show my appreciation for the national is like I want to get some tattoos when I grow up, and my idea for a way to commemorate each national is to get like each national is like a hash mark on my chest over my heart, like to represent how many I've been to. So I'll definitely be back if I'm alive.
That's awesome. That is so cool.
But
I like that you said when you grow up. we can define that
in
off
about
camera,
in about a year. Next national, we get the first 6. This is one of the cards that I really like that I picked up. I had a PSA 2 of the card that I loved, but the price difference from a PSA 2 to like a 4 and a 5,
and that's a 49 Bowman Satchel Paige,
49
right?
Bowman Satchel Paige is like the price difference between like 2s and 5s is like insane. Like it's like a couple, like very small percentage jump on that specific card in comparison to like a much greater percentage on like other cards. Like it only cost me a couple $100 to upgrade from this card from my PSA 2 to the SGC 4 at the national.
It's top 1% color, your copy. I held it in my hand. I'd pay a couple $100 just to have held it. It's a beautiful card.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have gotten this one. Especially it's a beautiful example for the grade. Then I picked up, these are 61 Fleer portraits. Wilt Chamberlain portrait, 61 Fleer, Elgin Baylor, and Jerry West. I really like collecting 61 Fleer. I have the Oscar and the Russell with me as well to complete the 5 most important cards from that set, I'd say. Those are cards that I'm really happy to have picked up. I've owned the Jerry before, and I've owned the Wilt many times, but I've bought it and sold it a ton. So I was temporarily without my favorite card in the hobby. So I'm definitely excited that I got this one.
And those 61 Fleers are gorgeous. By the way, our buddy Sean, Victory Investments, compliments your Satch. And he echoes something I was thinking, is that your dad needs the matching tats, Luke. So we need those hash marks for all the natties you guys have been to.
Nice.
Yeah,
we might need to do that. We'll see.
I don't know.
It's a good idea. Though.
My like follow up idea is like in each place, like I get like a different like style, like for each hash mark, like and maybe a different one in Atlantic City and a different style in Chicago, and I don't know. I feel like that'd be
make the one from Atlantic City like in the shape of a cigarette butt or something, right?
Yeah.
Well, big ideas, guys. Big ideas. Yeah. Any last parting words, Luke, while we got you?
No, I appreciate you having me on. Hope I can do it again. If you need me to fill in again, for sure, I'd be willing.
Well, I appreciate your amazing eye. When we do pickups at the end of the show, I'm going to share that card that I'm going to share.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. I'll be in tune.
All right. We'll see you.
All right. Take
See
care.
you guys.
Thanks for joining us. All right.
All right, Nate. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Luke really has inspired me with how amazing he is in his eye. Maybe it's just that the youngsters have better vision than us, but we both have our wingman or our wing daughter that helps us bird dog eye appeal cards at the shows. So let's dive in with the highlights. What were your highlights from the show? Kind of the things that you've come to expect over the years and the things that keep you coming back.
Yeah, right. So the kind of foundational stuff. So definitely the cards, obviously, and having a chance to see a ton of like really awesome cards and have some pickups, certainly. That's at the center of everything that we do. And, so it's exciting to have an opportunity to see so much stuff in person, both in the showcases and then also, seeing friends pickups throughout the course of the 4 or 5 days there. And, people are coming up to you and like, oh my God, I just got this back from PSA. I just picked this up. I, just got a sticker on this or whatever. So kind of the enthusiasm of our friends and their pickups and what cards they're getting and all that kind of stuff. So, like we had our friend Josh with, just insane T206s that he was getting graded. Our friend Jim got a beautiful 52 Topps Mantle. Like, there are just all sorts of incredible cards that we were seeing throughout the weekend. Sean Victory Investments, who's here, picked up some great cards. I don't know if he's gone public with those yet, but just like awesome stuff throughout the weekend. And then, the like you guys were talking about before, the dinners and the opportunities to get those interactions in person with our friends in the hobby that, social media allows us to be connected with throughout the year, and, podcasting and all that kind of stuff where we can kind of stay connected, but then those in-person moments are precious. And that's really the opportunity to do that. And then, I really like going to the trade nights. I mean, that's something I've come to really love. I probably wouldn't have even started doing it if it wasn't for the guy we just had on with us. Kind of often think of it as a little more of a kid thing, but it's a real lifeblood of the hobby. It's kind of how I think about it. Just like the enthusiasm spilling over at those things is contagious and is a lot of fun. I like doing a couple athlete signings each time, and I got to go with Luke to meet Giannis and Jim Kelly, the former Bills quarterback.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, kind of an interesting dichotomy there.
I didn't know about Kelly.
Yeah, it was really neat. He was a great guy in person. So we had a lot of fun doing that. Got some cards inked up from those guys. And then, one of the other things, it's kind of a little smaller highlight, but I love seeing some of the hobby art too. Like there's just some incredible art displays that you see there that really in particular capture some like, kind of well-known hobby cards in really interesting and unique ways. So I always enjoy kind of perusing some of the art installations. So yeah, that's kind of some of the stuff I've come to expect, and all of it was on point this time. How about you, man?
Yeah, it's similar takes. I love, and this is one that's grown over the years, but I love just getting together with community, going out for dinner. One of my favorite parts of the show is the Wednesday. The crowd is a little bit lighter. It's only open in the afternoon. And for the last 4 years, this was my fourth, I've done that with my daughter, Lucia, who she's just starting high school. She's going to be a freshman. So just that first day of going in with her, and we take a big, I call it an idea board, but I have these printouts. For folks on the podcast, I'm showing just like lots and lots of images of old cards that I printed out with a color printer. And Lucia can kind of memorize the visuals of all the things that are on our idea board. And we walk around and she spots them, and we're kind of opportunistic. It's my favorite, it's probably my favorite day to buy, and it's my favorite event of the year to buy. I just love kind of having an open mind of a lot of different kinds of things I might like to collect and finding them and seeing what I fall in love with. I also love the opportunity, some of the museum type of cards. I remember, Nate, you and I were walking the floor briefly, and we saw Tony E-Trade's booth. And there was this one display case that just had the highest grade, 33 Gaudy Babe Ruths, or a 52 Topps Jackie Robinson, and maybe a PSA 9. Just, these kind of cards that might be 7-figure cards, and it's fun to look at those. And oftentimes some of those museum quality cards give me ideas of things to chase. You know this. I won't share the card, but the REA auction is closing tonight, and there's one big card that I'm kind of wondering if I might make a run at, because I saw it at the National. I had a chance to hold one, and it made me think, hey, what the heck? Maybe I could go for it. So it's always fun to see those. And one more thing I'll say, it's become a tradition that we do a some of our buddies, we do a box rip. We all buy a junk wax or a kind of mid 80s sports card box and rip them open over drinks and dinner. And that's been a blast too.
Yeah, absolutely. It sure is. And you and I and Lucia and Luke and usually some other buddies always end up getting dinner on that first night. I really look forward to that too. It's a nice kind of intro to the long weekend, usually a Wednesday night dinner. And this year was definitely no exception to that. Looks like we're getting some fun comments here from folks.
Yeah, Jason Ward says that Finley, who is his 9-year-old vintage collecting daughter, was at the show and met you and Luke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Jason. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we did at Vintage Trade Night. That's right. Yeah. His daughter is a vintage collector as well. So she would fit right in with our kids. And yes, that was great meeting those guys. And Jason, if I recall correctly, actually bought a card from Luke too. So
how cool. Yeah. Small world. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
So Nate, hit me with some of the things this year that were highlights that were kind of new for you.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that, I've talked a little bit about, but the trade nights, I enjoy so much. And the vintage trade night that I was just referencing that Jason was at was, that I thought was really a lot of fun. That, because the trade nights anyway are always a real highlight for me. But then having the opportunity to, have a group of vintage folks, and it was kind of like a corner of the room in the midst of kind of the big sea of overall trade night. And I don't know how many people were set up. What do you think, Jonathan? Maybe 100, 200, 150, something like that. Vintage collectors. Yeah. And maybe the same number walking around. So it wasn't like, massive, but it was enough of a critical mass that it was just really a lot of fun. And I thought a great vibe there. It seemed like there were a lot of deals happening. I sold a couple cards. I bought a card. Got to meet some great collectors, and that definitely really stood out as a highlight. And then something else that you referenced was, it kind of along the surprise, and I probably shouldn't be surprised, but just some of the insane cards that you see walking around the show floor. One of them that really caught me was there was an exquisite LeBron rookie, his RPA to 99. Yeah. And it was a BGS 9.5 with like a perfect auto and an incredible patch. And I talked to the guy, and it was just sitting like in a display case. I mean, it had nice cards around it, but I don't know what that card is worth. I would guess somewhere in the 7 figures. And, the guy was like, yeah, he's like, I talked Ken Golden, stopped by to see it, and he said he thinks it's the nicest LeBron exquisite RPA in existence. And like, obviously there's no price on it, but he's just like got that thing sitting there. And another one was the Mega Cracks Messi rookie PSA 10 someone had in their case. Yeah. That's probably like close to $1 million card. The 49 Bowman Satch and a PSA 9. I think you referenced that was in Tony E-Trade's case.
Yeah.
There was one case I stumbled on that was kind of way in the back of the show near the TriStar booth that had a bunch of E107 Bryce Williams cards, including the Matty rookie, the Wagner rookie, the Cy Young, which those cards are incredibly rare just kind of stumble. And that was mostly like a modern booth, but he had those cards on consignment. So I really enjoyed, taking a look at those. And then got to spend a lot of good time with the Card Ladder crew this time, and went to dinner with Chris and Josh one night, and really enjoyed that conversation. There are a couple of the sharpest and leading minds in the hobby, so to have a chance to sit down, and Luke really enjoyed doing that as well. So just kind of talk cards really intensively for a few hours with those guys was really cool. And then hanging out at their booth. So I'm rocking the Card Ladder thing hoodie here tonight too. So
Luke was wearing it earlier. Somebody mentioned that in the comments.
Yeah, that's right. They were giving out some really good swag and stuff there too. So those were a few of the things. Just one other thing. I submitted one card to SGC for a reslab, and then I actually ended up, I really don't grade much at all, but I ended up grading a few things because I don't do it. Like I kind of accumulate like some reholders, and then
Yeah.
It's occasionally some cards with autos I'll get where it's not the card isn't graded or the auto isn't graded, and so I want to add it because I kind of prefer on cards that I have autos to have them both graded. And then the cards I got signed by Giannis and Jim Kelly, I wanted. So I ended up going to the PSA booth a couple times, and it was like they did a really good job. Like it was incredibly efficient. Quick in and out, helpful, like with the volume of stuff that they're taking in. I was pretty impressed. And then, the NBA booth where they were putting the, reviewing for Eye Appeal. I stopped by there a couple times, and, I saw a lot of people that were interacting with them, and I thought they did a great job too. So those were some of the things that stood out that I hadn't really experienced before that I thought were cool.
Good takes.
Thanks, man. How about you?
So there were a bunch of new things for me this year. One, I'll say that it didn't seem possible last year was my experience of showing up and picking up my 5-day early entry pass could not have been easier. It was so quick. It was just walk up the escalator, walk up to somebody, they check the QR code, and Lucy and I got our passes. That was so easy and convenient this year. I think there's still some crowd control issues, but I think they're doing better and better. So that was one. You mentioned vintage trade night. I had such a blast there too. And I ended up buying some cards from my buddies, which I didn't expect to do. I was telling you beforehand, I usually tell buddies like, no, don't sell it, keep it. That's a great card. But one I'll show at the end, but I posted this Clemente rookie today with the other two big 55 tops rookies. And this is from Pat, PLB Cards. And he had it out of vintage trade night. And I was just like, man, if you're going to let that go, it's got to be to me. And that was a lot of fun.
And Jonathan, one of the challenges with this format, I mean, probably any format really, but people watching can't really see how incredible that card is that you just showed. I had a chance to see it there that night in person, and it's a very rare example of that Clemente card with the
little sticker to say that shows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What is that? An E sticker on it, or
yeah? It's got the Fanatics E sticker.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah. Pretty very nice. Deserving, incredibly centered, beautiful. So yeah, that was a phenomenal pickup. You can't just pass that one over without telling people what you're holding.
I appreciate it. Let me give you a couple more quick hitters on kind of the new things that were highlights. One. It felt like that I had so much community this year. The first couple of years, I just felt like I was lost in the crowd. Last year, I started seeing a lot of people I knew, but this year it felt like around every corner, there was just a buddy. It was so nice to just feel like I was surrounded by friends and running into folks I hadn't talked to in a while. So that was fun. I got to go to Wrigley Field for the first time ever. I used to live in Boston and loved Fenway Park, but I always felt this hole in my heart for Wrigley, the other great American ballpark that's, goes back with so much history. And I bought the Cubs hat right there outside of the field with Matthew and J Rock, another hobby buddy, and Josh Hall of Fame cards. So that was new and so much fun. And one more thing I'll say is I saw a lot more representation this year of female athletes on the cards and women walking the floor. I think there's a long way to go in the hobby, but it's really cool to see more and more women inside of the hobby as well.
Yeah, awesome, great takes, man. And for the folks that are joining us, I'd love to hear what some of their top takeaways and experiences were as well. Obviously we saw Chris and Pat and and Jason and some of the folks here there, but I'd love to hear from them as well if y'all are interested in sharing what some of your key highlights were. Steve just said looking forward to going to his first national next year. Nice, man. Yeah, hit us up if you want any last minute tips before you go, and I'll say book early if you want to try to get a hotel close to the show.
That's the first time is of the essence already.
Yeah, that's right.
And while we're waiting to see if anyone else kind of has thoughts about their experience to share, were there any negatives for you this year, Nate? Either expected or unexpected?
Yeah, they're minimal. I feel like I don't at all want to sound like I'm complaining because it's such an incredible, but I guess it is good to kind of raise a few things. So, we're not just seeming like we're, not being realistic or whatever, but For me, it's such an overwhelmingly positive experience that it almost seems to denigrate it to raise a couple of negative things because they're really minor footnotes. But I'd say, but one of them, actually, one of them is a real one, which is there was supposed to be the YouTube content creator get together, and we know several of those guys that kind of put that on, and I think that's something we were all looking forward to. And my understanding is that that was kind of squashed by the folks that run the national, and that they're also like fairly heavy-handed about, in some instances, about trying to prevent sort of the impromptu trade nights at hotels. And that feels to me like really unnecessary. I mean, those people do such a really good job putting the show together, and that's why we're all as enthusiastic about it as we are, and it grows and everyone loves it. But I don't know, like, do you really need to squeeze the last ounce of, is there some kind of profit that goes along with them squashing some other events that are happening nearby? So that felt like a bummer to me, and really kind of inconsistent with the spirit of what we're supposed to be doing there. Along the same lines, in terms of, kind of overall planning that could have been better, the trade nights are so incredibly popular. And I don't know, like, I haven't been in charge of an event that large. It's, many thousands of people that go to these things, but it was really difficult to get into those. I've managed to be able to do it, but there were a lot of people that couldn't go, that wanted to go. And many of the folks that did end up going had to wait a very long time. So it just feels to me like there has to be a better way to accommodate that kind of bubbling over enthusiasm that results in people having a full day of cards and yet still wanting more community, more cards, more trading, more buying and selling at, after dinner or at night. So, like, I don't know. It feels like there's a little more work that could be done there. Aside from that, I was a little busy with work a couple times. That kind of sucked. I was having to return some emails, and
I saw that happening a couple times. Yeah,
take some calls here and there, but there's not much you can do about that. That happens. You got to walk by the breaker pavilions and the whatnot, crazy screens, and about whatever. Like, you kind of know that's part of it. In an ideal world, would I not have that at our event? It's their event too, but it's kind of like the whole two hobbies thing, the gambling, breaking insanity that happens there, and then what the rest of us are doing. So, but whatever, it's fine to pass through that stuff, and it doesn't bother me that much. So,
totally.
Yeah. How about you, man?
The YouTube one, the YouTube vintage hang night, was kind of on my list as well. It's just almost impossible at the show to figure out how to organize some way for a group of 25 or 50 or 100 to meet up in the evenings, and it's hard. That was one attempt that didn't work, and there are other ways we've failed in that, and I wish we could solve it. It's still kind of a nut I hope to crack in a future year. There was one day, I think it was Friday, where the crowd was so overwhelming in certain parts of the floor also, where it just felt like you couldn't even walk. And that was good and bad. It was like, let's get out of here, but also, wow, this hobby is really exploding. I'll give you one more negative though. This one's pretty tactical, but it's happened so many times that I've come to learn maybe how to avoid it in the future. I like to collect some nice vintage raw cards. In particular for this project, I'll show you an example of a page. I have one page in my raw binder for certain sets. I'm holding up the 52 tops page, and these are either commons or kind of low-level stars. I've got a Dom DiMaggio, Johnny Mize. We picked up this beautiful pink Dick Sisler. Lucy and I thought his name was hilarious. So like that, that's a $20 card. You're looking for nicely centered raw cards from old sets, and a lot of times it tends to be older dealers. It tends to be the same dealers that say book value on their stickers,
right?
But sometimes I asked this particular dealer who I've bought graded cards from him for years. I said, hey, how much for this 52 Bowman Pee Wee Reese? I mean, this is a card that should be pretty cheap. And he says, I actually asked him about 4 cards. He says, hold on, I need to price them out. Give me 20 minutes. So I walked the floor and I came back.
Right.
And I noticed a $400 sticker on the raw 52 Bowman Pee Wee Reese. I just walked away. I didn't even say anything. I was like, I'm not even going to engage in an awkward conversation. But some of these
Right.
dealers, they treat the card like it's graded, and they assess the most optimistic grade. And it's like, dude, if you
Yeah.
want to charge me like that's a PSA 7, then grade the card. But if it's just sitting in a stack of raws,
Right.
then I'm going to pay you $75 for it or something. Who
Yeah.
knows? But
Yeah.
when they have expectations that are just so far off,
Right.
then
Totally
my fun
agree.
little raw, my fun raw binder page stops being fun. So
Right.
I'm going to try to avoid those dealers in the future.
I've found with some of the raw stuff I'm putting together that, I love to find it raw, but sometimes it's just easier to crack it from a low grade card,
Yeah.
because so often, and especially in terms of buying from dealers, like you can get them at auctions a little bit better because people are a little more realistic, although I think often they're even a little overpriced there. But yeah, with the dealers, like they usually optimistically assess their cards at least a grade and a half, sometimes 2 grades higher than it's likely to grade, so that really makes it tough.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, we got a couple comments on things that were positive on the national. One was our buddy Chris Publius says food and drinks at the Ashburn, and that was a highlight for me as well. And then Jason was saying for Finn and him, this was the first national, and positive vibes from the vintage community. They've been buzzing ever since. And they've already booked Strongsville.
That's awesome.
Something that Nate and I have been talking about maybe doing as well.
Yeah, and the national for next year. That's great. It's an addictive experience, man. Once you get a taste of it, it's tough to not go. So,
and Pat here, our buddy in the chat, saying, yeah, the card is like near mint. Yeah, that's something we hear from these dealers. The funny thing is, it might look nice, but some of the time you pick up these cards and there's a little wrinkle on it, and they're trying to price it like a PSA 7.
Right. Yeah.
Well, Nate, what as you look ahead to next year's national, what might you do different?
Honestly, I mean, I feel like I've got it down pretty well at this point in a way that works really well for Luke and me. I mean, it kind of optimizes a little bit more each year, but there's not much. I mean, as long as we can get the hotel booked near the convention center, and then honestly, it's pretty much running it back like it was this year. The one thing that I would really like to change is something that I'm afraid is impossible to change, or I'm not willing to do what would be necessary to change it, which is the only big downside for me for the national every year. And it actually is a significant downside, is I eventually end up getting sick afterwards. And this time I thought I had missed it. Like I made it all the way till like the Friday after the show. And then I was starting like, oh man, not feeling great. And then by like Saturday, I was like, yeah, I'm getting sick. And so I think it was probably from the show, but like the very tail end. And then for like a week, I've just been feeling like crap. And this, I think the 3rd year in a row that's happened. So I'm not going to wear a mask the whole time. I'm not going to avoid anything. So I don't know. I think I just got to accept that that's part of the experience.
That's a bummer. This was actually the first year I did not get sick.
Is it? Okay.
I got horribly sick after Atlantic City and mildly after the last 2. But yeah, I considered masking up, and I was like, nah,
right.
I'm not going to do it. But I made it unscathed this year.
Yeah, good. How about you? Any plans for changing anything up next year?
I feel like I also have it pretty dialed. I love doing my printed out idea board.
Yeah.
I love having an open-mindedness to what I want to buy there. I will say that I want to do a better job remembering which dealers are willing to deal and which aren't. And sort of like, for example, we talk a lot about Ash. A lot of folks in the hobby know Ash and, Day Sports Cards. And he is a high volume dealer, wonderful to do trades with. I met another guy this year. I think the dealer is called, I want to get this right, EB Cards LLC, and this is a 68 tops high grade Bobby Orr. I won't get into it, but this is a card I was looking for. It's a 4-figure card, and I had a whole box full of kind of cheap slabs, $100 slabs, $200 slabs, and he was willing to go through and I traded him 8 cheap slabs plus a little cash for this card. And a
Awesome.
lot of dealers would just have no patience for this, right? And his assessment of the value of my 8 cards was $15 different than my total assessment.
Wow.
So I talked to a lot of people that had done deals with this guy too. So I want to build up that sort of knowledge of which folks are willing to do reasonable deals and kind of high volume and the stuff I like, and just target them if I want to do trades, not try to walk the floor and show my wares to every dealer I run into, but just target the ones.
That's a great call. And boy, yeah, he does sound like a keeper. Like you said, Ashes too. Do you know where EB Cards is out of? Do you recall? Or
no, I don't recall. But yeah, I should look them up.
Yeah.
But certainly one that was awesome to do deals with. And, there's a few others I recognize there. And the other thing is I've tried for a few years to either do upgrades or downgrades of a card with a dealer. And I found that it's just a dead end. If there's a card I have that I would like to either upgrade or downgrade, I found I just need to find the one I want and buy it and sell mine, because the negotiation doesn't quite work with dealers. You end up getting hosed if you try to give them your 52 Bowman mantle for a nicer 52 Bowman mantle. Dealers like nice cards, and they don't want to take an uglier card and give away their nice one, even for cash on the margin. So I'm going to stop trying to make that play.
Funny you use that example. I tried exactly that with a 52 Bowman mantle and got nowhere as well. So I concur. Yeah, they whack you pretty hard when you try to do that. I actually did, I think it was 3 years ago, pull off one of those. I had a Hank Aaron rookie PSA 3.5 that I liked, but I didn't totally love. And I found a dealer with a SGC 5.5 that I did totally love, and traded him mine plus, I think it was a 61 Topps Maze PSA 8 and a little bit of cash. And he actually did a really fair deal with me. So it's tough, but when you find it, it can be really nice, because it's that like 2 birds with 1 stone thing. You don't then got to move the card separately. But I think overall, you're probably right. The time is more efficiently spent if you break it into 2 transactions.
The funny thing is I've only pulled it off once as well. It was actually featured in a reel that our buddy Adam, the Reel 27 guy, made.
Mm-hmm.
It was the 48 leaf Joe DiMaggio. I upgraded the exact same grade, a PSA 3 for a PSA 3. This was 2 years ago in the Chicago National. And we had an impasse of about $100 at the end. And I threw in a CJ Stroud card, of all things. A uber modern college uniform rookie card of CJ Stroud. And that got the deal done, which was awesome. Really funny about it.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Are there, what are some things, so we talked about potential future improvement, but are there a couple things that you can think of that you have learned over the last few years that really are key parts of how you feel like you have optimized your experience as you've gone?
Yeah, the first thing that I think of when you ask the question is, if this is the event of the year where I really love to buy cards, what are the right kind of cards to be looking for there? The day you and I met was at Atlantic City National, and I had gone in with a mission. Right. That mission was to pick up a Willie Mays rookie. And on the second day, I pulled it off, but it was fraught with stress. And I've talked about it a lot. I think it was too focused of a goal to hit in this big, crazy building full of chaos. And I think now, if there's certain kind of cards where I think I need to look at thousands of them before I pick the one, like the Hank Aaron rookie that I want to have, or the Jackie Robinson rookie I want to have, it's better to do that elsewhere. It's better to look at auction houses, look what pops up, and kind of time the moment. So yeah. I think at the National, I want to be hunting for cards where I'm happy to find one in any grade, right? If it's really rare card, a lot of the pre-war stuff, that was how I felt about my main card that I was hunting this year. If I can find this card in any grade that looks pretty good, I'll be happy to find it.
Yeah.
And then the kind of cards that are just where you're opportunistic, where you think like, this is really good value, and it's a card I've seen for years, and I'm just gonna. That was how I felt about the Burke Ross Ted Williams that I bought a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was gonna walk away with that card, but it was the right copy. It was the right price.
Right.
And then some of the raw commons, the kind of the cheaper stuff that's just fun to go through old boxes and pick up a few. I enjoy those as well. So I think a lot of my big takeaways are, what are the right kind of cards to be hunting at this event. I'll give you one other big takeaway from this year too, which is just the strength of the hobby. It felt different this year. The diversity of the crowd, the size of the crowd, the health of the prices, and we've all been through this. I'll maybe even call it a bubble that happened in 2020, 2021 in the hobby, and then kind of pulled back. And now it feels like a true bull market in vintage collecting. It feels like prices are strong. It feels like the interest is strong.
Yeah.
I just walked away from the show thinking, yeah, I think I'm putting my money in the right place and eager to keep doing it. It was pretty amazing how strong the hobby felt this year.
Yeah.
How about you? What were your big takeaways?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with that as well. I mean, you know, on the market, it felt right. Like it felt, though, you know, my first one was in 2021 and things were pretty euphoric at that point, certainly in the market, summer 2021. But, you know, having gone through that and now, you know, kind of bumping along at a lower level for a few years and seeing what's happened now over the last kind of 6 to 12 months with the market coming back. I mean, it can't continue at this pace, right? Like nothing does. And I'm sure it'll cool off. And the fact that so many people are talking about how strong the market is right now is probably the first sign that it will be cooling off soon. But yeah, like just the base of people that are in and the people that are so passionate about it, and, you know, seeing how people are thinking about cards, you know, in some kind of different ways, you know, from kind of an asset standpoint. And, you know, I think really did feel kind of different this year. And, you know, it created a real extra level of, I think, enthusiasm throughout the show that a lot of people had. And one of the, you know, the word that kind of came to mind for me in terms of, you know, how I felt leaving in that regard was conviction. You know, like I feel like for a lot of us, it just really solidified that level of conviction about like what we're doing. And, you know, part of that for me was like selling a few cards so easily, like when I, you know, put them out at trade nights and stuff, like people were coming, you know, and getting those sales, like, you know, kind of helps a little bit too. And just seeing how enthusiastic and how transaction oriented so many people were, really left me feeling highly convicted that we're, you know, gonna be in a strong place. At least, you know, there'll be ups and downs, but we're in a really good spot. And then, you know, the other thing that really I felt like afterwards was, you know, Chris HOJ from Card Ladder used this term. I think it was on one of Jeremy Lee's shows, but he talked about hobby fuel as, you know, kind of like the elements of the hobby that really incite the passion in collectors and hobbyists. And like my level of energy and hobby fuel leaving the show just felt, you know, it just overflows at the end of that. You know, it's like, there's so much good stuff, so much like incredible energy, so many new relationships, new cards, new ideas that come out of that it's like enough to kind of, you know, I don't know about the whole year, but like there's so much that comes out of that it's really a launching point for at least the next several months, if not the whole year. So, you know, those were kind of some of the ways I was feeling coming out of it.
Yeah. And since I do so much buying at the show, also that fuel also that lasts for months is just bringing the cards home. And as you often say, incorporating them into my collection, like making different pairings. And and then you start to imagine like, oh, these puzzles fit in now. What are the next puzzles that are going to fit into that? What are the pieces?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Those whole new paths that get opened up now. Yeah.
One other takeaway I wanted to give was signed cards. We talked about it before, but what a strong part of the hobby. And that's one that I've just categorically excluded myself from. And I learned from talking to a lot of collectors that are in that world. I think their investment dollars have, done better in the hobby than mine have. The folks who have gone in on signed vintage are seeing real returns because that part of the hobby is super strong. For whatever reason, I like the cards, just the way they came out of the packs. But it was cool to talk to a bunch of really passionate vintage collectors of signed cards, like Luke, Bleecker Street Cards, or we met Marty at Vintage Night, signed 33 Gaudy, and their passion and their knowledge is just amazing.
Right. Tony Southern Collector has gone really
well. Tony too.
Yeah, that part of the market has been, right. Like the rest of the market is, has kind of really gotten very warm at the least, if not hot now. But that part of the market has been flying for a while. The last I don't know, 2-3 years. It seems like that those cards have done exceedingly well.
For sure. Well, I'm pretty eager to show some pickups and to see some of yours. But before we do that, looking forward to what's next. Do you think you're going to hit any shows before next year's National?
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons I feel like that the National is so awesome, is because I love going to shows and I just don't go to as many as I wish I did. So it's kind of like this huge degree of like pent up demand by me for time at shows that all gets taken care of in like 5 days. So, but yeah, so we have a local show here that we check out like once every 2 or 3 months or so. It's quite small, but it's enough to kind of go and, see some cards and see some people that we know there and stuff. So, we'll undoubtedly check one of those out soon. And then I'd really like to try to get to a Philly show. I feel like that's definitely on my list for one, to try to get to sometime in the next year and a half or so. We'll see if this is the year. But Strongsville, which has been mentioned, that one is firmly on my list. It sounded like that was an incredible time last year. I had really wanted to go last year and ended up having a conflict, but I ideally, if it goes as well as it sounds like it should, would love to kind of get that as another sort of tent pole on the calendar that I try to do each year. So.
Yeah, being from Ohio originally, that's one that I would love to hit and, give me an excuse to visit my folks in Columbus before I drive up. The Philly show I hadn't thought about, but I have heard good things about it. That would be fun to hit as well. Yeah. I've thought about the Dallas show as well. People say Dallas is good. Maybe we could visit our buddy JT down there.
That'd be awesome.
That one.
Yeah, right. That would be a really nice benefit there. Yeah. I did Chantilly this past year. Luke and I did, and I don't know if maybe we didn't go to the right one or what, but I was a little disappointed by that one, honestly. Like, it was a decent sized show, but especially from the vintage side, there was just, I feel like in the first 30 minutes at the National, I've seen more than I saw at Chantilly in a long weekend, So,
yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
All right, let's do some pickups before we wrap. How many cards are you going to show?
Let's see. So I got 10 cards in total while I was there. And
that's a lot for you.
I know it is.
You showed up.
Yeah. Not huge stuff mostly. But I have 7 of them here. I actually gave 3 of them to PSA for like reholdering or, adding a grade or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, want me to want to kind of take turns showing a couple?
Yeah. I just wanted to plan accordingly how many I'm going to show. And I already showed the Dick Sizzler. So I'm one up on you. But,
nice.
All right. You go first and we'll alternate.
Okay. I'll start with one here that is a great example of, you were talking about being opportunistic. And this is a 1985 Topps football. Obviously, when I say the names, Dan Marino and Joe Montana. And it is dual signed by those two guys. And it's a PSA 7 DNA 10. So the auto grade's a 10. And I collect 1980s cards that are signed. Grew up heavily collecting in the 80s. And that's kind of one of the ways that I've decided to really stay connected to that era of cards. So this was not one that was on my list. I do have some that I intentionally go after, but I just came across this one at a table. It was, I'll say this was $400. And it just felt to me like a lot of card and you know, a really kind of nice addition to that sub collection that I have for what seemed like a really reasonable price.
And you just defined what I meant by opportunistic buying. I love it. I'm going to
Yeah.
show you something related, but it's from our vintage, or sorry, it's from our Junk Wax box rip. So a couple of the boxes was 1981 Topps hockey and 85 Topps football, which Nate just showed. So out of that football box, I've got the Joe Montana card here.
Nice.
And then I've got 2 Gretzky cards. The hockey box turned out to be a really hot box. That's J-Rock, our friend Jim, bought that box, and I got 2 Gretzky's in the Montana. I like to pick a few of the cards I like and send them off to PSA just to get them graded.
Yeah.
You know, these might be 7s, 8s, 9s, somewhere in there, but that was really fun, and those will be in the PC, and I'll have good memories of that.
Nice.
Box rip.
That's great. That's cool that you showed a couple from that. That's awesome. And JT, I think, liked my Merino Montana. He is a fellow Junk Wax auto collector. So
yeah,
thank you, JT. Glad you're still in the chat here and checking us out. And Chris Publius said that he and TJ will take us out when we come to Philly. So that sounds awesome. That will raise it even higher on my list of shows to check out. So that'd be a lot of fun. Let's see. Next one for me here is 57 Topps Nat Clifton, Nat Sweetwater Clifton. So it's a PSA 4, and you know, it wasn't like super high on my list, but I love collecting vintage basketball as well. And it's a card that I've kind of looked for on and off through the years, and just have never really found that kind of low to mid grade centered, nice looking example. Which is tough to find. There's a lot of snow, a lot of centering issues in the 57 set. So neat rookie card of one of the first black players in the NBA, and reasonable price, and felt like a good pickup.
That's really cool. I haven't seen that. And I know you have the Russell from that
Yep.
set, because that's one of your favorite cards. Do you have the koozie from that
I
set?
do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So this was one of the bigger ones that I still needed. So that was a fun ad.
Love it. I'll show you the card I mentioned earlier. There were certain cards where I just say, if I can find one in any grade, I'll be happy. And it was really the image of this Ty Cobb card. This is it's got the yellow background, and sometimes it's called the Cobb facing forward. And you find this image in the E101 set, the E102 set, E106. There's a few others as well. This is from the 1909 E101 set. Sometimes it's called the set of 50. And it's an SGC 1.5. Beautiful color, good registration, way off center. Mm-hmm. And this is one that was part of a big trade I worked out with Ash. And I was just, there was maybe 3 copies total on the floor that I had found. And the other 2 were a little out of reach in terms of the grade. And I was really happy to bring this one home. I'd kind of discovered this card after last year's National. I really went deeper learning about the caramel sets as opposed to the tobacco sets. And this was my first kind of big Ty Cobb card from one of the caramel sets. I did have the bat off, but not one of the E's. So really happy to bring this one home.
That was a great pickup. I love you and Lucia. I know spent a lot of time thinking about the various examples that you had to choose from, and I think you guys chose really well. That the registration and especially the color on that one looked really, really nice. It's in our favorite collector grade, 1.5.
That's right.
Which always helps too. I love those 1.5. So that was a great pickup, man. And I know you've been eyeing that one for a while. So that was pretty neat that you guys together were able to pull off that deal, pick the one that you liked, and get it done.
Once that was the second day of the show. And once we did that, it felt like, all right, success, everything else is gravy.
Yep. That's right. All right. Next one I have here is T206 John McGraw in a PSA 4, and it has the sovereign back.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It was in the back.
Super center too.
Yeah, it was a really nice example. I like collecting McGraw, and I didn't yet have any of his 3 T206 cards. So I've been looking, just trying to find the right examples. This one had great color and centering, kind of all the things I look for. And I don't have any T206s with the Sovereign back, so I was kind of glad to add that one. This one was interesting in that I ended up getting it for exactly half of its stickered price. The guy, which I know that like never happens, but and so, I looked at it and the sticker was on the back and I was like, oh man, there's no way I'm getting this thing. But I started talking to the guy and I was like, comps so it was like $600 and he had like 1,200 on it. And I was like showing him what some of the recent sales were. And he was like, yeah, I got that a couple years ago and I really overpaid for it. I think I paid like 1,000. So I've been like just trying to kind of get more than I should. But he's like, you're right. That's what it's worth. I'll do it for what it's worth. And so we ended up doing the deal. But that doesn't usually happen that people
totally
change their mind.
I just move on when it's that overpriced.
Yeah.
All right, that ties into a big card that I was going to show last, but I'm going to show it now. I mentioned earlier when we were talking with Luke that he is officially better at this hobby than I am, and I meant a few things by that. His eye, he has an incredible eye. He's got a nose for value. He's also got a fearlessness, I think, about negotiations. And when we were talking with him, I think it was maybe the second night in one of the hotel lobbies. He was telling some stories of how he got cards. And I said, I never have in negotiations. I almost never have the guts to actually offer a card what it's worth if they're so overpriced, for example. And I also kind of, I throw the towel in. I get a little too nice sometimes in negotiations, but Luke, he kind of inspired me to negotiate a little bit harder, and it helped me for the rest of the show. I had a number of examples where that helped me out, but his own success in the hobby brought this card into his collection and it subsequently into my collection. This is an old mill back T206 red cob portrait, and this was the other big card I was looking for. Turns out they were both Thai cobs. And after the first day at the show, Lucia and I had decided that the National is not a good place to look for a red cob portrait. They're either all kind of ugly ones that have been, passed over for too many years, or just way overpriced. Somehow Luke had found this for a crazy bargain. It's such a good looking copy that he then walked it over to Mike Baker and got a gold sticker on it. And he had decided that he was going to let it go for a profit. And I said, well, if you're going to let it go, let it go to me. And I ended up buying the card from him. And I think it was a good deal for him. And I know it was a great deal for me. So I'm really happy to have this one, and happy for all the things I've learned from Luke.
That's awesome, man. Well, he really, I know, appreciated doing the deal with you. And that was very cool the way that worked out. And yeah, that was an exciting pickup and then sale. And I know he's happy that it now resides in your collection. And I can attest from having it reside in my hotel room for a couple of nights and ogling it myself that it is an unbelievable copy. For the grade or not for the grade, just a freaking beautiful example of that card. Super, super deep red, incredible registration. Perfectly centered old mill back, which I know Mike Baker loved. We joked about that a little bit,
yeah.
Right? just exactly what you want in that card. So,
totally.
Congrats, man. That's an epic add to your collection.
That's my lifetime copy, and it's got Provenance. It's got the Luke and Mike Baker Provenance on it.
That's right. That was fun. All right, so. My next one is one that kind of surprised me. So this was opportunistic a little bit as well. And this is the 55 Topps Willie Mays in a SGC 4.5. And Jonathan, you and I have talked about this card some before.
Yes.
And I've had a PSA 5 for quite a while that I really like a lot. But I came across this SGC 4.5 and it was very well priced, like basically at comps. And it's really well centered and just really, really nice overall. So my thought was I'd pick it up and bring it home and compare it to my PSA 5. see which one I like better in hand. And I've now done that. And this one's going to be my keeper, the new SGC 4.5.
Nice.
And I'm going to sell the PSA 5. This one just looks a little bit better overall, a little better centered, little better color. And, the fact that I was able to get it basically for comps was just, one of those really nice opportunities. Again, not something I was looking to do there, but one of those things where when it presented itself, it was too nice of a chance to pass up.
Yeah, you saw the value, and it goes to show if you want to upgrade or downgrade, just buy the card, and then you're going to get better value from yours when you decide to sell it.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, I'm trying to keep score here. I think I've got 4 left to show. This is a fun one. We might lose half the audience here. But this is from the 1962 Mars Attack set. I've actually been looking for this card for like 5 years. It's card number 1 in the set. It's just a silly, iconic non-sports card. But you see a lot of cards from this set on the floor, but they're always overpriced. And I finally came across one for just a couple $100 from a nice dealer, and I just snagged it real quick. And I'm glad to find that was on the idea board for the last like 4 years. So
was it? Wow.
Mars Attacks number 1. And I love collecting non-sports, and in that world, this is kind of one of the fun, iconic cards, and ended up inspiring the film that was made, I think, in the mid 90s.
And was that like an exclusively non-sports dealer that had that card?
Or it was a primarily non-sports dealer. Yeah, it was some that had a lot of wacky packages and Garbage Pail Kids and a lot of the historical cards like the presidents and inventors and things like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Nice, man. That's a fun pickup. All right. So my next one is kind of a little bit of a surprising one for me as well, which is the 1998 Fleer Tradition electrifying Michael Jordan. Yeah, in a PSA 5. So, not quite to your level, Jonathan, but we all kind of have like a little bit of an MJ collection, right? Like if you're a serious collector. So probably not the best time to be buying MJs when they're up like 9,000% over the last 4 months or whatever they are. But this is one that I've wanted. And, this is the value sometimes of seeing stuff in hand. Like I'd always thought these looked really cool online, and I was pretty certain that they did. And, I'd seen them a little bit, but this one I came across, and it's a PSA 5, and because there's a little bit of chipping on the lower edge on the back of the card, and it otherwise, like, at least to me, looks perfect. But I just seeing this in hand, I didn't get a particularly good deal on it. I kind of paid what it's worth now, which is like double what it was 6 months ago or whatever. But it's one I've wanted a long time. I liked getting the low grade because the way we vintage guys collect, like I don't need a 9 or a 10. This card looks exactly the same other than a tiny bit of chipping on the back. So I'd rather just have like more cards that, look the same as 10s and have like 20 nice looking cards rather than 1 or whatever. So.
All right, I'm going to show an MJ2. This is one that had been on my idea board for the last 3 nationals. It's the only star Jordan card that's really called to me, and I think it's one where the price hasn't gotten out of hand. This is from 1986, best of the new. It's got this beautiful blue border on it, and I think I bought it from Indie Card Exchange. They were super great to deal with, and for some reason, this card, you'll see Beckett 9s all over the place. They're like $2,500, and I think they've been $2,500 for years. And I've just been looking for a lower grade copy, and I finally found a Beckett 8.5, and I got it for less than half of that and a little under comps.
Nice.
So it was one of the last cards I bought at the show. To my knowledge, PSA isn't grading this card right now. I think they once did for a brief period of time. I think once they do, if they ever do, I might cross it over. Maybe it'll be a 7, maybe it'll be an 8, but I think that'll be fun. But cool. I felt like it was a good deal.
I liked seeing that one in hand. I didn't even recall like seeing that one or focusing on it until you showed it to me. That was kind of like a new card to me, and that one looks really, really cool. I like the image on that, and the coloring is really neat. So
it's got MJ, for folks who aren't seeing it. It's got Jordan rising up for a jumper. You see against the Pistons. You see Bill Laimbeer, with no chance to block it, but it's a fun image.
What's fun too is I'm showing cards, and then like you have such a big stack of awesome national pickups there that whatever I showed, then you can just pick one from that stack that like perfectly plays off of whatever I just showed.
All right, you got two more? Is that
I'd
right?
have two more. Yeah.
All right, me too.
All right. My second to last one here is a N184, which is Kimball and Company, James O'Neill. This is from 1887. So
Wow,
the
that
Kimball,
is an old looking card.
yeah, Tip O'Neill was his nickname, not the
Yeah.
former speaker. And I've started doing a little bit of collecting in the 19th century stuff, and what I'm trying to do here, at least initially, is try to get at least one card from each of kind of the better known sets from the 1800s. And so I did not yet have a Kimball and Company card, and Tip O'Neill, although not a Hall of Famer, is the best of the 4 or 5 baseball players that are in that set. This is, again, our favorite collector grade, 1.5, which is always a draw, and got a pretty decent buy on this. This was actually my one pickup from the vintage trade night, and you remember it was like right
I
on
remember,
the way out.
yeah.
So
the color didn't show as well right here on the YouTube video, but I saw it in hand, and it's really pretty card. Really cool pickup.
Thanks.
All right, here's one where the color does pop. Maybe we'll see if it does on this. But this is the
Wait,
33.
When Pat's comment, he said, "Jonathan, you should have warned us to sit down before you showed that Cobb, the red portrait." And he said, "Are you gloating by leaving my comment up?"
Oh, I forgot to take it down.
I like it.
Yeah, we just left that comment up for a good 5 minutes.
You should be gloating.
Yeah, I should. So the 33 Tattoo Orbit, I've looked for this one for a couple of years. This is the Hornsby card that I wanted to be sort of the representative playing days Hornsby. I do have the manager card from 33 Gowdy, but I love the colors of this Tattoo Orbit. This is a set I only know of because of walking around the floor of the National. And there was one that Tony E-Trade had that was a PSA 7. And finally, on the second to last day, Luke, your son, he texted me and he said, "Hey, I Cut and Slab is the name of the dealer. They have the card in it too." I went right over there. I paid something reasonable to get the deal done fast, and thrilled to finally have it.
Nice. Yeah, Cut and Swing, right?
Cut and Swing. That's what they're
that's
called.
right. Yeah, man, I love that one too. And again, like it just doesn't do it justice. Especially the really vividly colored cards like that one. And there's something that feels just kind of much more modern about that set, I feel like. And I don't know if it's the color or the design or what, but it doesn't feel to me like it's as old as it actually is.
Totally.
Like, I don't know. There's a newness about it somehow. Like it could have come out 20 years ago, not like 90 years ago.
Totally agree. I almost have cognitive dissonance about the
Yeah.
fact that it's almost 100 years old. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a really cool pickup. All right, my last one is my 1947 Tip Top Bread Yogi Berra. Yeah, and this was my favorite pickup from the show, and it happened within about the first 15 minutes that I walked in. And
Wow.
You and I have both talked about it, and that beginning of the show, for folks that haven't gone before, try to get there for Wednesday. When the show opens, Wednesday is probably the best buying opportunities. The showcases are full. Everyone is there and eager. They've all been saving up their inventory and put it out. So, if I hadn't stumbled across this table that had this card on my way into the show on the first day, I'm certain from having chased it for the last 3 years that I would not have ended up with it. So this one's an SGC 2.5, and it's a pretty nice example. And this card has just eluded me for far too long. So I was very pleased. It's not a huge card, but big enough card. And really, it's been like kind of top 3 or 4 for me on my want list for a long time. So
yeah,
glad to have gotten it.
What a journey. I'm going to be seeing that card still in auctions for the next 3 years and be like, "Nate, did you see the Tip Top Yogi?" And then like, "Oh wait, he finally got it."
Right.
I'm so used to looking out for you on that card.
Yeah. And and the card, it's not like it's black and white, and it's not like a incredible design. Like I'm not going to pretend it's some like beautiful card, but I really like it. It's and I don't know if it's a rookie or an XRC. It's I'd probably consider it an XRC because it's more of like a regional non-pack pulled. I still probably consider his 48 Bowman like his real rookie, but I really like the image of Yogi on it. I love that it's Larry Berra and that he's an outfielder from the New York AL squad. So like there's just some cool tidbits on it. And I collect a lot of Yogi, so that's kind of why I wanted that.
I love it. Great card. All right, here last pickup of the show, and then we'll wrap up. So this is a T205 Hermann Germany Schaefer, and this was a gift from Nate. This is the first T205 card I've ever had, and Nate knows that I got a kick out of the anecdotes about Germany Schaefer from the book. Sorry,
Glory.
I'm blanking.
Yeah,
The Glory of Their Times.
Yeah,
and especially some of the things that Germany did as a base runner. Some really funny anecdotes about stealing bases forward or backwards. But I was just reading the back of the card and got a kick of it. So here's what it says. Germany Schaefer, whom the Washington Americans got from the Detroits during the season of 1909. That's how the back starts. The Washington Americans got from the Detroits, which I think is very funny. It says he's played all over the infield and outfield, is a reliable hitter, a good base runner. Maybe that's arguable.
right.
And then also the star comedian of his team. It goes on to talk a little bit about his antics, even on the back of the card. But such a great looking card. And it's one of the things I love about this hobby is the friends you meet end up thinking of you and giving you little keepsakes like this, which will be in the PC for life. So thank you, Nate. And that's been one that I've really had fun looking at ever since the National.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's awesome. Glad you're enjoying it. And we've had so many good times talking about and experiencing that book together. And I know, we both really enjoyed the Germany Schaefer stories. But he's the one that stole first base from second base, right?
That's right. Yeah.
JT
in the comments commented that.
Right. Yeah. And then, and then he pinch hit and then hit a home run and sprinted to each base and dove head first and was like calling his run around the base paths and all that. So it's been so fun, all familiarizing ourselves with the stories of that book and kind of bonding over that. And so one more thing about him that I just learned. So
he passed away pretty shortly after he retired from the game, I think in 1919. And I believe it was in 1920, Major League Baseball officially passed the Germany Schaefer rule, which is if any base runner attempts to run the bases in reverse order, the umpire can immediately call them out for
is that right?
The game. Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
So there's actually a rule in baseball that's named for, his stealing first from second base.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's one of the great things about those T205s. The write-ups on the back are just awesome. The T206s are neat because they're all different and you can get into the back collecting, but I really enjoy the narrative write-ups on the T205s.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Well, we better wrap it up here, Nate, because we've gone on for a while, but thank you everyone for sticking with us. And we hope to run into you next year at the National, or who knows, maybe even sooner in Philadelphia or Strongsville or Dallas.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks everyone for joining us. Jonathan, this was a lot of fun. And 12 minutes till extended bidding at REA. For all those that'll be participating tonight, good luck. Hope you guys bring home some great cards. It's an incredible auction. And thanks, Jonathan. Had a lot of fun. Talk soon.
All right, let's get after it. We'll see you, Nate. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.